So we started our last video at Anderstadt Station, and it seemed to make sense to start here again. Last time I mentioned there was a few things that we're really looking forward to doing. It was adding the control for the switches and signals, adding lighting to the buildings, and I'm really happy to say we've got all that done. There's lighting now in all of the buildings, so in the signal box and in the station building over there, along with both the signal lights are now powered. The points and the signals themselves can be controlled digitally. The only thing we didn't get around to doing was the uncoupling ramps, and I found that actually I didn't really need them because I put a bunch of manual uncouplers in there. I found it actually worked quite well without, so I'm probably going to remove them completely from the station. Because the other big change here is you probably see this station. Previously we were using the ceramic tiles that you see here, the offcuts from that were making the station, they're still on the far side, but on this side I realised they were actually the perfect width for the Pico stations. So I got a couple of those, got a really good deal from Grutzspor, along with some station canopies. A couple of them I had from when I was a kid, put them together, gave it a spray of grey because I found that the default colour that Pico comes with, sorry not Pico, Polo-G, the default colour it comes with kind of clashed a little bit with the grey. Gave it a quick spray with a grey primer, then a grey spray paint. It's come out really well. Not done any of the scenery here yet, so the figures, that's something I normally do with Nikki, something part of the railway that she really enjoys, so we're waiting for the weather to get a little bit nicer to come out and do that. The other thing you can see, we did a little bit more planting. We moved some things around in terms of where the buildings were going to be, left a bit of a gap, so we've started putting some plants in, what we're hopefully looking forward to them establishing a lot more over the summer. A couple of jobs still to do. As I mentioned, need to remove the uncoupling ramps. The other thing to do is between this junction box and the one that's hidden behind the kind of station building there, I need to put those cables, so the 12 volts and the main bus wire, I need to put those into trunking just so they're a little bit more sightly, because at the moment they just run along the back. And then I think the goods shed building at the end is also going to need some lights adding to it, and then also some lights on the platforms themselves, and then finally lights on the buffer stops, but I've not got around to working out how I can make some lanterns or trying to find some kind of cheap or discounted ones on eBay. But yeah, this is it, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. Few changes here as well on the bridges. So Nikki and I always wanted this to look a bit like a valley, so a large bridge spanning a valley, which is why we didn't originally extend the flower beds all the way. We decided to put the bridges in here. Added a few conifers to either side, just in parts to restrict their growth a little bit, but kind of has this effect of coming down from one side of the valley to the other side of the valley across the bridge. At night this looks we think it looks absolutely fantastic because we've put lights. Really happy with the addition to the garden. You sit outside in the evening with a beer in hand, this just looks wonderful. So this is Monbifeld Station. It's one of the smaller stations. It's on the branch out to the terminus station that we were just visiting. It's just a passing track, but one of the things we felt, it always looked a bit odd because there was no platform. I'd put off putting anything in for this because I didn't want to go kind of make cement or work out how to frame it. It's not necessarily a skill set I had. So it's one of those areas of the layout that was looking great with the plants and they were really coming through, but it just didn't look quite finished. And then a few weeks ago we actually found this lawn edging, so it's the grey that you can see that makes along the platform, so just here. This is lawn edging that you usually use to divide a flower bed from the lawn. We got it originally for Barettberg Station, which I'll show you shortly, and turned out that actually it worked really well just as a small platform. So this is one of the changes we made in the last few days. We dug this in, wired up the lamps, so there's a little bit of station lights, and then put the station building back. Station building is evening out a little bit, but we think this really changed the dynamic of the space a lot, and makes it feel like an actual station as opposed to just a passing siding. Other thing to note here, along with the station lights, the light on the signal is working, although the signal is not yet connected to be controlled. I need to go and add that shortly. And then the station lights in the building also work, although one of the bulbs is the wrong type of LED. We use warm white mostly because we're kind of going for a little bit more of a early 20th century vibe, and that's kind of one of the bright white bulbs, which is a little bit cold for what we're looking for. So I've ordered some more of those from AliExpress and hopefully they're here in a couple of weeks. We can get those updated. So last time I sat here, there was a lot to do. I wasn't happy with the tunnel portals, weren't sure what type of tunnel portal we wanted to put in here, and then there was exposed concrete blocks here that we're using to kind of retain kind of the area behind. I think it's come a long way. So we finally went with the knock tunnel portal over here, kind of broke apart what we had already, put it in place and just used kind of a construction adhesive to stick it on, and then put the rocks in around, and then just use an expanding foam, which worked actually really well. The foam turned out to be a kind of a yellowy colour when it dried, so I just used a little bit of masonry paint, which was more of a kind of like a sandy colour. It filled in, actually worked really well, really nice with the granite rocks. Similar thing here, did what we did on the other side of the layout, so used kind of a construction adhesive back of these tiles, and remember these are the tiles that we get from somewhere like B&Q or kind of a homewares place. These are the things you'd normally get on a kitchen backsplash, so just literally put a construction adhesive on there and put it on, and I think it's come up with a really nice effect. It gets rid of that kind of that grey concrete block, and particularly now as the plants start to grow in and around it, I think it's really starting to flesh out. So yeah, really happy with how this has turned out. Other small detail here, you might be able to see it, is we've started adding lantern lights to the switch just to show the direction. Steadily going around and replacing all these with LEDs as well, just because they're a little bit brighter, so a little bit easier to see. So yeah, just now it's the job of keeping all the plants in check. So this is Barettberg Station. There wasn't actually meant to be that many changes planned for this, but it's one of those things that I started working on it, and as we started going through the process, found lots of things that we wanted to change. So you'll see, just dividing the flower bed from the station itself, you'll see that lawn edging that we use, and it's the same lawn edging that's used over at Monbifeld to make up the station. This is where we first found it. It was to try and create this divide because we had this weird awkward slope where mud was just running onto the platform. It was making it messy. It was a pain in the butt to maintain, and this was the solution. And actually when we got it, we realized how easy obviously it was to bend, and it would work very nicely as a kind of like narrow platform, and so we started using it in other parts of the layout. So that was one of the first changes we did. The other change we've made here, or as you can see, is the station lights. We switched them out from the kind of the small LGB street lights to the larger, taller station lights. Nice big positive effect. Makes it really bright. Obviously we've changed the LEDs in them as well, which I think just had a really nice effect to it. The building on the left is actually a guest house. It's not a station house. This is from Polar G as well. We're using one of the Barettberg Station buildings, but it got damaged in one of the storms we had during the winter. It would be repairable, but while we were waiting, we actually put this in place, and we actually really like the effect. So we're considering keeping this, because if you can see that there's a paving slab underneath it, that's actually the main kind of junction box, if you will. So where the electronics run out from the house, the railway, it all comes out under there. So we need it to be easily accessible, and actually just being able to lift the guest house on and off is really good. This is the other side of Barettberg. Again, you can see the stations here. We've added this signal tower. So this signal tower I bought because I liked it, but didn't actually have a place to put it. All I did was use the kind of brick, which you can see for the base there, put that in place, and then put some granite rocks behind it to frame it out. And then again, similar as we've done in other places, we use those tiles, give it kind of a platform. What the tower actually does is it hides a bunch of the wiring connections. So where all the lights run from, there's a connection in there. It's also the wiring connections for the switch lantern light, and obviously then there's some lights inside the signal tower as well. A little bit of decoration, just put those crates there and a few old wheels. So these are some old LGB plastic wheels that we just spray painted brown, and just have that effect of kind of old forgotten wheels. So you may be wondering what this is. This is actually an LED strip. I mentioned in the last video that this was causing some troubles on our open day, because although you can see the trains coming from this side, you cannot see them coming out the tunnel. So before, when I mentioned over there that we have some detection going on, it actually triggers this. If the train comes from this, so from through the tunnel, it detects the current, identifies that there's a train coming, flips a relay over here and turns this on for about 30 seconds. It flashes. It works really well, not in bright sun. As soon as the sun comes out and it gets a little bit bright, which it does tend to do in Jersey in the summer, it's too bright for the LED. So even though they're flashing, it doesn't draw enough attention. So happy it worked. happy I got the wiring. It was a really interesting experience in terms of working out how to get that all set up. Not happy with the actual outcome we're trying to achieve, which was reduce the risk of someone kicking one of the trains as it came out the tunnel. Have got another plan for this now, so stay tuned and I'll tell you more about that hopefully in our next video. The other train to highlight here is where the point is with the lantern. This originally was just running on the cement base. You can see kind of to the divide. It always looked a little bit awkward, and it looked even worse when we started running cables. So what Nikki suggested is like, why don't you frame it out using these tiles and just put some gravel over the top of it, completely change the aesthetic, and really happy Nikki suggested that. Heffrach Station got a similar treatment to Monbifeld. So again, this is that lawn edging. This is one pack, so you get two pieces. You can connect them in the middle. As you can see, some of the people need gluing down. They're having a bit of a lay down right now, and need to finish changing out the bulbs on the lanterns. Similar thing as Monbifeld, really added a different dynamic and made this feel like an actual station, and not just a passing loop in the middle of nowhere. The other thing really loving about this station is all the planting has really just taken off. You can see particularly the flowery bush to the left. It's really starting to flesh out, and which is actually true for a lot of the garden, but I think starting to see everything come together now is really lovely. Over here, steadily making some progress. You can see here the most recently added tiling. I still need to tidy all this up, but slowly as we get more of it, or as I remember to pick some up from B&Q, they're coming round. Opa Brücke, so Granddad's Bridge, because my grandfather built this for me, was recently repainted. It was starting to peel a little bit, so given a couple of coats of paint. And then also had again some solar lights added to it, so in the evening this kind of flashes away, which I think is really lovely. Other major change here is obviously Steinertal Station. I think we've done a lot of work on this. So you probably saw in the last video that we had the station buildings and the waiting room. The major changes here are the footbridge, someone's clearly laying down on it, and the station lights. Station lights were reasonably straightforward to do. All I had to do was drill through the ceramic tiles, which was terrifying because I was always worried about cracking them, but actually they're pretty hardy. I just used kind of like a drill bit designed for that, and a lot of water, and it was pretty easy to do. So the wires run straight down, and there's a small junction box that sits just underneath the station platform, underneath the gravel. The bridges from Pico, it was a little bit too wide, so as it comes, when you put it on, it was basically the left and the right of it were at the maximum width you could kind of get, so they were just on the platform, and it looked really weird as the trains came past. It just didn't catch, but it didn't really work. So very apprehensively, we agreed to kind of cut out one of the bridge sections and shorten it, and then use a few extra pieces of the sprue, which you can kind of tell when you look closely, but generally to the eye you can't see. Really happy with how this turned out. Also going to look at adding some lights to this as well, because I think at night that part of the station looks quite dark. And the final thing we've been working on more inside than out is in the workshop, is starting to customize some of our passenger wagons. So you can see on screen at the moment, these are the new Kida wagons. We use Nikki's Cricut machine, which is a craft machine that lets you cut out really accurately vinyling and lay them together. That's how we created that HSBA effect. And then the other thing we've been working on in the workshop is adding lights to these passenger carriages. I think if you can see, the big theme of this video, I was really trying to create a space where evening running is really atmospheric, and adding lights to these carriages has gone a long way towards that. These were done really simply. We used AAA batteries and then a string of LED lights, cut them to size, soldered the connections together, and then left a switch exposed just under the kind of outside area of the coach underneath the roof. Makes it really easy to turn it on and off. And yeah, really happy with how this turns out. So with that, I'll leave you with a few of the evening running shots. And one last thing, if you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It's always really appreciated.